What's going on, guys? So today I wanted to talk about a very strange eBay ad that I came across. Now, this ad is for a 2011 Saab 94X, and the seller wants nearly $50,000 for it. When it's all said and done with taxes and registration stuff, you're probably going to be paying about $50,000 for this if they get their asking price. So if you guys have been long-time subscribers of the channel or do have a knowledge of Saab, I'm sure you all know what the 94X is. But for those of you who don't know, I'm going to give a brief background on the 94X before we get started with this video. So the exact production numbers aren't completely known. Many sources say there's under 500, some say around 470 to 490 produced, while other sites say 600 or even upwards of 730 or so 94X is being made. So it is an extremely limited car, probably the rarest production crossover in existence. Just to kind of put that into perspective, if you don't understand how rare that is, there are about 10,000, probably by more even now than that, Lamborghini Huracans on the road, and those have been produced for about 3 or 4 years now. So it is an extremely rare car. So if you see one of these, consider yourself very lucky. So it debuted in 2010 and it was sold only as a 2011 model. It was on the GM Theta Premium platform, which is shared with the Cadillac SRX. I'm sure all of you here in America and even overseas, I don't know if they're sold overseas, but it's a very common luxury crossover here. So oddly enough, the Aero wasn't really the rarest variant. There were 3 variants of this car, and a third of them were Aeros. A third of the total 94Xs produced were Aeros. So in that Aero trim, which is what this ad is for, it came with a 2.8-liter twin-scroll turbocharged V6 producing 300 horsepower. So that's pretty good. And of course, it came with other upgrades from the base 94X as well, better wheels, better, a few other things. I'm not really going to go too much into the detail for the sake of this video, but it's the highest spec 94X that you could get. And oddly enough, this was assembled in Mexico. All the 94Xs were built in Mexico. So with that being said, there's a quick little brief background on the 94X. So now let's go ahead and get into this ad and see possibly why the seller wants so much money for it. So as you can see, this car is very rare. I mean, like I said, even the ad says clean unicorn, and everyone in the Saab community kind of refers to the 94X as a unicorn. So obviously it's used. It's not a brand new car, but it's about as close to new as you can get. As it says here, only 3,800 genuine kilometers, which translates to just under 2,400 miles on the car. So here's one little interesting twist on this ad. This car is actually located in Estonia, which for those of you who don't know is in Europe. So this is not an American car. This is a car that's actually been over in Europe. And oddly enough, it is a US spec car. The ad says here, the car has infotainment system with US configuration, meaning the navigation only works in North America, such as US and Canada. The radio frequencies have only US continental channels. So if you bought it in Estonia, you couldn't use the navigation or the radio at all. So it's kind of pointless for any car, especially if you're going to be spending this kind of money for it. So there's just a few specs of the car here, most of which I already went over. All-wheel drive, 2.8 turbo motor. It's the Aero trim, under 2,400 miles, automatic, SUV. There's the VIN. And of course, if you guys do want to look at this ad or for some reason would like to contact the seller or purchase this, there will be a link for this at the top of the description. So it says it was first registered in June of 2012, and it says that the latest production vehicle and unicorn, well, that's just bad grammar, but I'm not sure if they mean the latest production vehicle, if that means that it was the last 94X produced or something. Actually, that it wouldn't be, because I know the last few numbers of the VIN, if you look here, 135, that means it's probably the 135th 94X produced. So in terms of where it was produced, around the 500 total cars or so that were made, it's not a significant number. It's not the first one, it's not the last one, so that shouldn't really add to the value at all. Now, how I see this car is something that you're not going to buy and drive. This is something that a very specific and wealthy Saab enthusiast would potentially look at to keep in a museum or to keep in their garage and basically, I don't think it's really going to appreciate. Maybe way down the road it'll appreciate, but I don't think that, I mean, this isn't like a classic, you know, like highly desired car. So I don't see the nearly $50,000 asking price. Granted, that's probably about how much it costs new. That's my guess, at least, is it cost around that new, probably a little bit less actually. So I just can't justify the asking price. Yes, I understand the miles are absurdly low on this, and I understand that it is essentially a brand new car. But with the navigation and stuff, none of that stuff being able to work since it's it's in Europe, being an American-made car or being an American spec car, it just doesn't make sense why they could ask this much for it. And yes, I do understand the rarity, and at the end of the day, it's all about what people will pay. And I'll go ahead and go through the pictures here. I'm surprised, I apologize for not doing that yet. Go through the pictures here they posted in the ad. Just nothing special about, just your standard, you know, 94X Aero. An ugly Kia Soul in the background there. I mean, this car is just absolutely gorgeous. I love the looks of this car. It's just, I think it's a beautiful car, but there you got the engine. And what kind of car would ladies go for? Right answer. That's 2012 Saab 94X all-wheel drive. Well, it's a 2011, so I guess ladies will not be going for this one. It even says right here, 2011. So that's a fuck up on the advertiser's part. But all joking aside, what I want to do now is, I know that Kelley Blue Book and Edmunds, one thing that I really like to do if you are looking at a used car is to check the true market value of it. But when you're looking at something that is this rare, and especially something that's overseas, it's not going to give you anything nearly accurate. So I went ahead and I was not able to pull up like a dealer pricing for this. So I had to basically saying it's my car and I want to trade it in. So first off, looking on Kelley Blue Book, it says that if I own this car, that exact car, and I went to trade it in, I would get about 20 grand for it. And I think that's a fair amount. Honestly, it's probably a little bit less, but you got to understand that you're trading it in, and the dealer who is buying it from you is going to sell it for more, which is probably more around what it's worth. So realistically, I would say selling to a private party isn't going to give an accurate representation either. Yeah, 22.3, because I mean, this isn't a private party sale. So I would say that a realistic asking price, if this car were in America, is probably mid-20s, maybe high 20s. I don't think anything more than 30,000. That's just my opinion. And again, at the end of the day, it's all about how much is the seller or how much is the buyer willing to pay? Because this car could sit for sale for months on end and no one's even going to ask about it because of just how rare the car is. I mean, you're not really getting a whole lot of bang for your buck other than it's an extremely rare car. When you're looking at it from an unbiased perspective, I mean, you guys can see what I mean here. So if we look at Edmunds and we scroll down here, it says if I were to trade it in, I could get 15.6. We're not looking at trade-in or private party, but if a dealer retail for this car in America with this mileage, with these specs, is about $19,000. So I personally think that's a little bit low, but I can understand where they got that number from. I don't know. I don't see, maybe in Europe these are worth more. For you European viewers, let me know. Is the nearly $40,000 euro asking price, which is about what this translates to, it says 39.5 euros, is it worth that there? Because I personally don't think it would be, but of course car markets in different countries, and in this case continents, is going to be very different, just the pricing and whatnot. So with that being said, I'm going to leave you guys with this question. If you had the money, if you had money to spend, would you spend nearly $50,000 on this car? For all intensive purposes, it is a new car, so we can't really say, you know, that, granted, yes, it is 7 years old now at this point, and only has 2,400 miles on it, but really, in reality, it has not been driven much at all, and is basically in the same condition it was when it came off the showroom or production line 7 years ago. So with that being said, that's going to wrap up this video, guys. I feel like I rambled on a lot and I apologize for that. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next video.